I was unprepared for my last job in the Army. I arrived in Ottawa as a general officer with none of the experience required to represent the Army in a meaningful way. I was not alone. On this NSP short, Dick Fadden explains why the entire military benefits with generals and admirals who are more adept at navigating the bureaucracy in Ottawa.
I think the honest answer would be that it was varied. My term there was with Tom Lawson as the CDS, and he was very supportive. But he and his colleagues pointed out often, the way things were structured, general and flag officers needed to, check a variety of things on their promotion schedule, and if they didn't do that, they wouldn't get promoted, and that meant that the rotation level was way faster than I thought it should be in order for them to be able to, acquire knowledge of the town. I think John Vance, when he was chief, acknowledged this by trying to lengthen the terms of service for at least the senior general and flag officers so that they could, they know where the washroom is and how they operate, So it helped, but a lot of them didn't really like the idea. But a lot did. So my argument, I started with, if you can't convince the Treasury Board to approve a new procurement, it doesn't do any good at all for you to sort of pat yourself on the back and saying, I was in Ottawa for 2 years and I'm going to go back to Halifax or Gagetown and my successor is going to worry about. So I thought that part of the challenge was between the services. There were a whole raft of committees between the services, the three services and special ops, to try and come to an agreement on advice to the Chief of the Defence Staff on what particular activity or procurement or policy was to be given priority. It's an entirely reasonable way of proceeding. You need to talk. But one of the things I found frustrating, and I'm not the only one, was as these issues sort of worked their way up to become more and more senior committees. In many, many cases, and again, I'm generalizing, there was a gentleman's agreement, forgive the sexism, gentleman's agreement that in these very senior committees, one service wouldn't criticize another. The objective of these things was to sort of say, to give you an example, the Navy today is very keen on having submarines. They want a dozen submarines. I think having submarines is a highly desirable thing. I don't think they've made the case that it's essential. And the only way they could make a case that it's essential is by saying that if we're having submarines, the Air Force and the Army is not going to have something that they want. And at very senior levels, you have to do some of that internal balancing before it hits the town. And I don't think it's intuitive, I guess would be the way I would put it. I'm not saying people aren't capable of it. I'm not saying it doesn't happen sometimes. But except at the LGen level, careers are made within the individual services, I think it's fair to say. And people tend to, do their boxing, between the services. And, let me be clear, too. I didn't think that we on the civilian side were, free of fault as well. We could have done a whole variety of things to make finances and procurement more transparent and more easy to deal with for the military and for everybody else. And we tried, but we didn't do as much. But I think in the end, you take an MGen or an LGen and you assign them to a job in Ottawa and you expect them to be able to deal with an ADM environment when that ADM has spent all of his or her career maneuvering the town. And if the LGen or the Vice Admiral is lucky, he or she might have spent a little bit of time here as a colonel and not any other time. And we wonder why they aren't as effective as they could be. And my argument was, I've got not only do I have nothing against what you're trying to do, I'm telling you, if you try and think about some of the things I'm proposing, you will advance your own interest by being able to work more effectively with the civilian side and with the central agencies. And some people bought it, to be honest, they really did. Some did not. But that's true of any large organizations. You would not get unanimity on this. And no doubt part of the problem was my inadequacy in trying to explain this in a way, because like a whole raft of other departments and agencies, the immediate often took care of these broader problems. So, we set up a committee or a board or something to deal with these issues, and we'd chug along until something really urgent came up, and then we'd put it aside and we'd come back to it. I think there would be a lot to be gained if more general and flag officers could develop a bit more of an expertise on Ottawa. I don't mean to spend their entire career here. That sort of defeats the purpose of having, an effective military. But recognizing that it is part of their jobs and that they cannot expect coming in as a rear or vice admiral, never having been in Ottawa, to be able to make the central agencies swoon at their every request.